Howdy folks, this video is going to show you how to get started with the Ruby gem for BVC, also known as RubyBVC. Okay, before we get started, there's a few things you need to make sure you've done already. One is you've installed the Brocade SDN Controller 1.3. The other is that you've installed Mininet and connected it, or some open flow switch. And then finally that you have Ruby 2.x or greater. There's links up there in the upper right corner for the install the Brocade and Mininet. For Ruby, just see below the video. Okay, now that you've got your prerequisites, let me go ahead and describe my environment that I'm going to be using. Okay, so in my windows here, I've got my Brocade Viata in the upper right, Mininet in the lower right, and my console in the left side. So let me show you the RubyBVC GitHub location. So to get to RubyBVC, bring up your browser, then go to github.com, then once there, type in the search box RubyBVC, and then pick the one for Brocade Communications, and that'll get you to RubyBVC. Next, let's just validate that you've got Ruby with a proper version. So here on the RubyBVC GitHub page, we see that it's a Python library. Its current version is 1.0. It indicates we need Ruby 2.1.x, and we're going to check it out right now. We're going to go to our console window, and we're going to type in Ruby -- version and check the version. Now that we're sure that we've got a Ruby with the proper version, let's install RubyBVC. So back on the RubyBVC page, we see installation as easy as typing gem install RubyBVC. And this is sped up a little bit. It takes a little bit of time here, and it installs it. There we go. So now RubyBVC is on your system, but what can you do with it? Let's check out the reference documentation. Okay, so back on the RubyBVC GitHub page, we find the documentation section. We pick the programmer's reference, and I'm picking controller here. That's because in most of your applications, you're going to create an instance of the controller and then work from there. And then from there, it'll branch out to all the other documentation. While the reference document is really handy once you know what you want to be doing, the best way to learn in the beginning is often by looking at working sample code. What I want to do is help you install the sample code for RubyBVC. Okay, so back to the RubyBVC GitHub page, we find sample applications. We click on RubyBVC samples. That's a whole other GitHub repository. And it shows you here that it is for RubyBVC, and here's how you grab it. You do git clone and then that URL. So we're going to go to our console window. We're going to do git clone and that URL. Then we'll go into that directory, and there it is. Okay, so let me show you how to run an app from the samples. So let's go back to the RubyBVC samples GitHub. And you can see there's a long list of the sample files or the sample applications that we have. There's a number of subdirectories where they live in different places, one for OpenFlow, one for netconf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the OpenFlow directory here, and then I'm going to go into the demos, and sure enough, there's the list of files. You'll see there's YAML files, YML files, and RB. YAML files are the configuration for the Ruby. You must go into the YAML file and make sure the configuration matches. I know the IP matches my BVC. I know the username and password. The node name is the node or the target switch that you want to target. And I see that it matches OpenFlow:1. So I'm going to go ahead and run Ruby space demo_1 RB, and there it goes. Okay, so now you should be able to try out all the demos, but let me just do a quick code run through of one of the files so you get a feel for how they are going to look and what calls are going to be made into the RubyBVC library. Okay, so back on the RubyBVC samples GitHub page, let's pick a demo. I'm going to pick demo 6. It's a simple example of adding and removing an OpenFlow flow to an OpenFlow switch. So back here, let's just run it to see what it does. Ruby space demo_6. You can see us creating a controller. You can see us adding the flow. Then what we do is we go and get the configured flows and make sure that there is flows there. We validate it, and then we delete the flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and VI that demo 6. So we see that we have to require RubyBVC and YAML. That's because we load the YAML file there. Notice this delay. That'll be important in a second. So put S, we're just letting people know what we're doing. So important, the first call is almost always creation of a controller, and we're using configuration from the YAML file. And then the next thing we do is we create an OpenFlow switch, and we're going to give the appropriate parameters for it. Then you'll notice that we've got a delay here. That's the delay. So basically it allows people to read and follow the application while it's running. Finally, we're creating a flow entry. So this is where we're actually creating the OpenFlow flow. This is the start of it. We're going to build it up with several components. A flow consists of instructions, inside of instructions are actions. So we're taking and creating an instruction, then an action, and adding the action to the instruction. Then we add that to the flow entry. And then we have to create a match because a flow entry also has a match, and we create it and then add it to the flow entry. Then we add that flow to the open flow switch. And once we've done that, we've configured and we check. We go and get the configured flows to make sure that there is in fact configured flows there. And then finally we're going to delete the flow as the application ends because we want to remove the flow at the end. Okay, so what's next? Well, you could try out more of the Ruby demos. You could then read the code, modify the code, and then write your own application.